The biggest problem I have with storytelling is not so much the storytelling or the creativity, it's the being in that mental, emotional state to really articulate that idea properly. I always like to view it as, or talk about it as the lens I'm viewing, or the lens I'm looking through. And it's like on a camera. The lens I'm looking through at that moment is the lens of love, the lens of compassion, the lens of empathy. And to tell that story now is super easy because that lens is already on. So everything that goes through that lens is essentially going to look the same and have that same kind of like genre and feeling to it. The problem is when I want to get into more, different types of storylines and different types of ideas, and I don't have that lens on, it's hard to then just switch context and be like, okay, I want to tell a scary story, or I want to tell a funny story, or I want to tell, it's like to get my brain into that thinking pattern is hard. And I try things like listening to music, that tends to help a lot of times, but that helps very well with the emotional stuff. I can listen to some kind of, simpy emo song and then be in it right away, or take a second and just think about how I feel about my kids or my wife, and instantly I'm in that mode, like reminiscent and all that. But I think when you're a storyteller, it's a lot harder to jump into that zone for other types of genres, especially if there's genres you're not usually accustomed to. So for me to go and make a horror movie right now would be near impossible, because not that I can't do it, but it's just not the mindset I traditionally follow. And because of my experiences in life, because of the things I've gone through, because of the things I'm accustomed to and I've seen, my brain works a certain way and understands the world a certain way, and it tends to follow that naive optimism throughout everything I think and everything I talk about. And it's nice because that naive optimism allows me to create beautiful content. But when I want to deviate from that sympathetic, emotional content, it's hard because my brain doesn't really think differently. It always thinks that kind of along lines. Although I have, comedy and other things like that, I enjoy being funny and try to be funny. But even to create a comedy, it's like you'd have to do kind of like a skit-based thing or something like that, and that's hard because skits aren't my thing. That's more the genuine comedy, the genuine telling a joke in the moment, and it makes people laugh or something like that. So staging it almost makes it feel unauthentic to me. So it's even harder to create that kind of content. But obviously, with all different types of genres, you're going to have to adapt and figure out a way to do it. So that's kind of my process right now, is trying to figure out how I go from feeling a certain way to creating a video or content or a movie or a short film that doesn't articulate that feeling. It's a different feeling. And crossing that barrier is hard, because when you're in a certain mindset and you're in a certain mood, and if you're somebody who's heavily driven by emotion, it's hard to go and walk away from that sympathetic feeling you might have in your head right now and then start saying, okay, I want to create a sci-fi movie, which I just tried the other day. And it's funny because as I'm cutting this sci-fi movie, the music I pick, super emotional, slow, acoustic, all that fun stuff. And then the scenes I start to cut are literally these very warm, sunny, comfortable shots, as opposed to something when you think of like a sci-fi, it'd be more cold, fast-paced, energetic, all that kind of stuff. But I'm still trying to figure out how to get there. And I don't think it's a bad thing. I don't think it's something I should be ashamed of. I don't even think it's something that I should be upset about, really, because I think having those emotions is what helps you get to that next step. And a lot of times people like to, they get those emotions and they automatically assume they're not cut out for something, and they're not ready for something, or just not their thing, which I can completely understand that too. But even though it's not your thing, it doesn't mean you shouldn't try it. It doesn't mean you shouldn't give it a chance. It doesn't mean you shouldn't push yourself beyond the place you're usually comfortable with. Because what you're going to find is by pushing yourself beyond those boundaries, you're going to create things that might not have been in your wheelhouse before, but then take those things that you usually create that are within the genre that you're comfortable with, and they're going to become better, because now you're going to be pulling from other things you've learned and other techniques and other concepts that may not fit in the box of what you're usually used to, but now stepping outside of that box, you can create something that nobody else has before. The funny thing about speaking to a camera, I think the reason why it's so intimidating is when you look at the lens, you see yourself. So you're essentially talking to yourself, and you can't bullshit. You can't lie, because as you're doing it, you're looking at your own eyes and you know exactly what you're thinking. So it's almost like talking to somebody else and knowing they're full of shit, or knowing they're, not being completely true and honest about something. When you look at the lens, you see yourself, and it's like you have to be your authentic self, which for a lot of people that's scary, because you're not sure if that authentic self is somebody who's going to be accepted. You're not sure if that authentic self is going to be somebody that people want to watch and listen and hear their story. That's a risk you have to take as a creator, is attempting, trying. And the funny thing is we've talked about this ad nauseum, that a lot of times the content you're creating might seem completely mundane and boring and repetitive, but somebody else watches it and it resonates with them, and they feel something for it, and they can relate to it. And even though the concept might have been nothing new to them, been nothing revolutionary, just knowing there's somebody else out there that thinks like them makes them feel like they might be on the right path. And I know personally that's true for me. I mean, I watch videos of, Peter McKinnon, Matty Hapoi, Danny Gervais, and I see the content they create, and it's funny because I'll have a thought like that during the day, and then I'll, go to create my own vlog, and I'll stop myself because I'm like, that's stupid, nobody wants to hear about that. And then I'll go and watch a video of one of theirs, and that's what they talked about, and I'm like, this is great. Like, this is Matty Hapoi's day. He went and built a puzzle, and then hung out with his kid, and then made some dinner. And you're like, oh, that was a great episode. But if I would have shot that, I would have been like, this is a horrible idea, nobody's gonna wanna watch this. But I think it's just understanding that sometimes giving people that outlet to step outside of their life and into somebody else's for a moment, and also taking that moment to realize that they can relate, that they're not in it alone. It's not just them living this life. There's other people that are living a similar life that they can relate with, and they can kind of follow and see their struggles and know that their struggles are real and that they can get out of them because this other person's doing that and still thriving. You say these things and you ramble them on, and then you've said them so many times in your own head, and you've said them so many times to other people that they almost seem to be like fake to you. Or like you almost feels like giving somebody else advice when you haven't got your own shit together yet, that it's a bad idea. Like, I'm gonna go out and tell everybody that's listening that this is how you should live your life. This is what you should do. This is what will make you happy. I could do that all day, and I could tell you great advice. And then I could film myself, and you could see that I don't even take my own advice, which is hard because it's easy to look at somebody else's life, and that's where it goes to that kind of lens again. You can look at through this lens and see somebody else's life and witness what they're doing. And since you're not seeing your own reflection in the mirror, it's easy to give that advice. It's easy to tell them to fix things. But when you're looking at that lens and seeing your reflection, you have to take your own advice now. That's hard because a lot of times that advice is hard to stomach, or it doesn't seem real or true for you. And, being a creator, wanting to call myself a creator, like I do within our office, I talk about how I'm a filmmaker and all that stuff. But when I walk outside of this office to tell somebody else I'm a filmmaker that knows me is hard. To tell somebody that doesn't know me is easy because they don't know what the hell I did before. So I could be like, I make movies, and they'd be like, that's amazing. But to speak with like friends and family and tell them I make movies is a little bit more reluctant. And even getting started was hard because, my first week into this, telling my wife that I was gonna make movies and make content, even she kind of like gave me a little bit of a weird look, like, okay. And it's hard because it's not saying she doesn't believe in me, but it's saying that if I don't believe in myself, people can see that. And if I'm going to try to pitch somebody who knows me closely on doing something and being someone that I don't believe I can be, then how are they going to believe it? So it's a hard process to follow, and it's a hard thing to do, but I think just like Matt and I always discuss, you just have to keep doing it. Every day, do it again, do it again, do it again, do it again, and then eventually you become that thing you want to be. I want to make short films. I want to make vlogs, as uncomfortable as they make me. I want to just make content that lets other people know that they're not alone, that there's other people that think like they do, there's other people that struggle like they do, and there's other people that feel like they do. And I also want to make content that makes other people feel the way I feel, or makes them feel and understand things maybe through my eyes. I want to tell a story that somebody might not have even known anything about, but I was able to show them enough to where they got an understanding of that thing. Or I was able to give them that brief moment of time to make them step outside of the bad shit that's going on in their life to a happier time, to a happier life. And then maybe give them hope that they can then get out of their shitty situation. And then at other times, I want to make people laugh. I want to make people, again, step outside of that bad day they're having, whether they're going through a breakup or just a rut, and give them a chance to laugh and feel that emotion of happiness and share it with friends. And maybe even one day I want to scare people. I want to make movies that put you on the edge of your seat and make you wonder what the hell's going to happen next. That one I'm a little unsure about because I don't even like scary movies, so I don't know if I'd probably shit my pants trying to make one. But yeah, I want to inspire others. I mean, realistically, I think that's the reason why I gravitate so much towards sympathetic, emotional content, is because the greatest gift I can ever think to give to the world would be inspiration. And not inspiration in that bland, boring bullshit that you're like, oh, you can do it. I want to actually inspire people to really take action. I want to inspire people to do better for themselves. And I want to take people who don't think that they're worth it because the world's told them that, or don't think that they belong. And I want them to realize that they don't belong, but for a damn good reason, because they're beyond all of that, because they're better than the world. They're better than all the mundane, mediocre bullshit out there, and they should see themselves as above the rest as opposed to below the rest, because the difference in them that makes them stand out from the crowd is what makes them beautiful. It's what makes them amazing. If the world is all the same and we all looked the same, we all acted the same, nobody would want to watch a movie. Why? Because they'd all be the same. They'd all be the same perspective, the same bullshit over and over again, as opposed to a new perspective. And there's times where you think that your perspective is the only one, it's the best one. But then you get to hear somebody else's and you realize that, wow, I never even thought about it like that. That's amazing. Or you watch a film. I mean, I can't tell you how many films I've seen from people of all walks of life and all different races, religions, sexual orientations, everything. And because they do live a different life than me, it's given me a new understanding, a new respect for certain things. And that's what I think the kind of content I want to create is. I want to create things that people can watch and then feel like there's somebody else out there that they've connected with. Feel like there's somebody out there that's telling a story that can resonate with them. And ultimately, I just want to create beautiful things. And not everybody's going to think it's beautiful, and it's not going to appeal to everybody, but that's okay too, because it just might not be your style, it might not be your connection. There's nothing wrong with watching content and not liking it. It's completely fine. It doesn't make the content bad, it doesn't make it not a beautiful work of art, but it just makes it something that's just not connects with you and resonates with you. And your goal after that should be to find something that does, and then give that creator credit. Let them know you love it. Let them know it was beautiful.